turn to ban.
And we're back for our second series of the day. TongFu going to be taking on Orange Esports. And I'll tell you what, Orange is one of those teams that you always got to keep an eye on. A team with talent at absolutely every position. Mushi, of course, one of the world-renowned players who is just known to take a game over, put him up, literally live up to the title of a carry player and quite literally put a team on his back and carry them. TongFu, though, a team that can't underestimate either. Extremely talented in their own right, very creative most of the time and in their drafts and in what they do. And we'll have to see which of these teams, or if they're which of these teams can prevail over the other, not just in game one, but both looking to, of course, improve their group stage standing, improving to 2 and C, joined by Draskell for the broadcast. And our first series of the day, well, let's be honest, Ras, it was a little underwhelming. Hopefully we'll have a better show out of these two.
I think it's going to be a much closer series. Actually, of all the games that we're casting today between us two, I kind of marked this one as the one that I wanted to see the most, just because I wanted to see where Orange lie right now.
Right.
I have a bit of insider information because I talk to LGDN pretty often, and they're saying that TongFu is one of the stronger teams right now. Yep. Stronger than Orange, so kind of slightly favoring them for this particular BO2. But that's not to say that Orange can't perform, because obviously, like I said, Mushi, Extinct, Ohio, even though he's considered a quote-unquote rookie, still a fantastic player, KYXY, just a fantastic lineup for Orange. I just want to know what kind of style they're going to be bringing, because the Orange of old, before Winter left, they were kind of a very aggressive team, and somebody else left too, whose name escapes me, so I'm sure chat will correct me on that. But they played a very aggressive style. They made it work. They were very similar to what DK did, but not in a push-centric way, just in a we're going to kill you a lot kind of way.
Right.
So I'm curious to see if that's going to be their similar style or what they're going to be bringing here today.
Yeah, tough to get golden levels whenever you're dead all the time, whenever you're spending all the game back in the well. And I agree with you. That used to very much be Orange's style, and we've seen them be in a little bit of flux. TongFu, I'm actually glad you brought that up. I had heard the same thing. I don't quite have the line-to-inside information that you do with LGDM, but it really doesn't surprise me. Just the murmurs on the streets from the people I do talk to say that TongFu is just one of those teams that quietly can beat anyone. They can show up and beat absolutely anyone on the planet in any given game. And that's what makes the tournaments like this so exciting. Obviously, we're still in the early preliminary stages, but you know, a team like that to me has to be extremely scary, even in a different way and to an extent more so than teams that you know are strong, because chances are if you know a team is a favorite, then you know why they're a favorite. You know what their game plan is going to be. Alliance is a perfect example of that. They're just so good at what they do. They don't have to conceal anything. TongFu, though, tends to mix it up. They'll show you some different styles. They'll show you some different game plans, and they will throw you a curveball from time to time. And especially for a team like Orange, who is still trying to find a bit of their identity, still very talented, and of course one of the best teams on the planet. But it's going to be a tough test for them. And TongFu going to lead things off with the Lifestealer. Orange, though, gets their hands on the Alchemist.
Alchemist is a very core hero, pretty much, for any Eastern team right now, just because of his versatility and the way that he can be running mid, safe lane, support, what have you. It's all very, very good, especially considering his ultimate. I think a lot of people forget how tanky Alchemist actually is with just a handful of items, is because his base armor is so low, being able to rush items like mech supplement that greatly. So level 1, Chemical Rage gets 250 extra health, and wow, TongFu taking a note out of DK's book in the last BO2 series by starting off with a Lifestealer and a Dragonite. So are we going to see a very similar push composition where they go for these very tanky frontline heroes who it's very hard to engage into, or are they going to go for maybe more of a passive early game into a later game? Because now with those two heroes, they can definitely do that, depending on what Orange want to try to pick themselves, but looks like their choice is going to be a Bane. So again, some ambiguity going on here from Orange, but TongFu, they have a lineup where, at the very least, they already know that pretty much the Dragonite's going to be mid, so they can try to deal with that accordingly.
Well, the Dragonite Lifestealer pickups in particular as an answer to Alchemist, I really love that because, you know, as you mentioned, what makes Alchemist so good is he is flexible, he is versatile, it's hard to game plan against him. He gets up an early mech, of course, it doesn't just help himself, it helps his team, and then he does just tank up, he's able to contribute through all of his variety of skill sets, even when you're not playing him as a carry, if you're just playing him as a DKS kind of a hero where, yeah, you want items on him, but you do not... you're not putting him in a safe lane farming situation or anything like that. But with these two coming up, two very potent melee heroes, though I guess you can't really call DK a melee because he does become ranged when he does use his ulti, and he'll almost always be an ulti for him as he fights. But it's just two heroes that are going to do really well at managing the Alchemist. Two heroes that peak at about the time, well, not necessarily peak, but they come into a point of strength in their own right about the time the Alchemist is hitting his stride as well. But Orange picking up the Bane. Very nice answer to both of those heroes being able to enfeeble the Lifestealer, Fiend's Grip the Dragon Knight, or vice versa. And Bane's one of those supports that, I mean, he has enjoyed increased popularity going back all the way to the beginning of the year, going all the way back to, you know, the conclusion of G League and G1 and all that. But I think especially in this tournament, as we see teams begin to try and find that stability that so often can net you tournament wins, Bane's just going to be one of those supports that is going to be seen over and over again because of how well he can deal with most of the popular heroes and popular approaches to aggression that many teams in the field tend to take. Chen going to round out the front three for TongFu, and this looks familiar. Seems like we saw this once already.
It's kind of escaping me, but I think I've seen something similar to what we're seeing from TongFu.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, I don't know, less than an hour ago, but yeah, pretty much note for note, actually in the exact same order as well, as we saw DK do against Dignitas. So we'll see if TongFu has the same success with this kind of aggressive, heavy push-centric lineup as they did. But the problem already lies in the fact that Orange don't have a safe lane farming Doom, and they certainly don't have a Vengeful Spirit support. So they're not going to be able to get away with sending the Lifestealer solo offlane and farming and getting free experience because the Enigma can't gank until 5 or push the tower or anything, because obviously Orange actually have a lineup who can deal with him in some sense. So I think we're much more likely to see TongFu go with the standard safe lane Lifestealer, DK mid, Chen jungle. Rubik looks to be the first of their supports. And TongFu have taken the liberty of getting rid of any split push potential, which is a huge weakness that that kind of a lineup has, where you don't really have anybody who can teleport back, because if you send one of the supports back, then it's kind of hurting your push quite a bit, and you obviously can't send one of the farmers back because then you don't have a push.
Right.
So I like TongFu's idea to ban that. The Razor can be incredibly annoying for any frontline hero if you get stuck in the fight. Even though you might not get focused, it certainly doesn't help to give a Razor anywhere from 100 to 200 free damage. So that's definitely a good deterrent as well. But the Windrunner pick for me is a bit... it's not
reserve time.
Weird. I'm just not entirely sure how this is going to fit in just yet, because we see that the Alchemist is likely going to be mid. That could just be them wanting to get their offlaner now, seeing as how Prophet and Darkseer and Weaver were already taken away. So that could be their thinking here, but we'll see.
Now, something that kind of jumps out just then, you know, and again, the difference between Eastern and Western playstyle is very well documented. This is the lineup I've actually seen, a front three that I've actually seen Na'Vi draft from time to time. They'll grab an Alchemist up, and then they'll snag a Windrunner, and especially against a hero that's a melee farmer in mid, like a Dragon Knight or a Naga Siren. Obviously, in this case, it's the DK. And a Windrunner can actually do really quite well in that situation. That allows you to send the Alchemist to free farm and play him as a true carry. And there's another support. Well, I'll tell you what, with Bane, Alchemist, Leshrac, this could be, and something else, it escapes me the last time I saw a team do this. I want to say it might have been Alliance. A Windrunner, Leshrac, and Bane offensive tri-lane. I've seen that more than a few times. If you want to send the Alchemist mid, then grab yourself a solo safe lane farming carry. You know, it seems like I've seen Orange take a variation on that before too. The Morphling's still available, a hero that Mushi does like. So they've got a lot of flex in their lineup. But yeah, having a Bane, a Windrunner, and a Leshrac to go up against if they perceive weakness, which they should, with the Chen obviously having to start out in the jungle and probably not wanting to come into lane any earlier than he has to. That's going to give them a little bit of leeway to try and be aggressive and try to confound the early game of TongFu.
I do like the idea of an aggressive tri-lane. I think it would kind of just halt their pressure completely, actually, because a DK versus an Alchemist is a wash lane, right? No one's really going to get anything huge out of that. And then right now, TongFu has to pick first, which means that they're guaranteed going to give away what their lanes would have otherwise been. So now they're the one who actually have the hard decision here, because of the fact that they're the ones who have to pick their hero before Orange. Orange can change it up depending on whatever situation happens. If they pick a hero that's going to be an offlaner, which currently they don't have, they're kind of almost forced into this position. It gives Orange a bit of an advantage in that if they do run that aggressive tri-lane, as you were mentioning, there's not going to be much of an answer for it. The Chen's going to have to spend a lot of time kind of beating around the lane, trying to find a creep or two, and most of the time, you're going to get your camps warded, and it's going to be a nightmare, because it means that the Rubik pretty much has to buy sentries early on, which means less regen. It's just a really, really big hassle. That, and of course, Enfeeble can be probably the worst experience ever if you're a Lifestealer and trying to get farm in a lane. So we'll see what TongFu's choice is going to be here. They have a couple of options. I mean, more than anything else, they have actually put themselves in a position where they can't really pick that good of an offlaner. They've left themselves nothing left, really, because Clockwork was the last bat.
Yeah, and I'm kind of racking my mind. I mean, it's whenever you show a Chen this early, especially with two melee farmers like a Lifestealer or a Dragon Knight, that you pick heroes like that. I guess they could pick up a... It would just be so weak. They could pick up a mid here. Maybe no, but you don't farm a Dragonite. They are going to go ahead and grab the puck, so maybe that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe you do something goofy like duck the Lifestealer into the jungle and then tri-lane the Dragonite with the Chen and Rubik there and then send Puck mid, and you just sack your offlane that way. Puck certainly can function as an offlaner, though he's a hero who really does like to have up at least 2 core items, usually in the form of a Blink Dagger and a bottle. But or even his set of boots, depending on how you want to build him. But we'll see how Orange is going to react here. I agree with your point completely. By the way, I feel like Orange. The beauty in Orange's draft isn't that they've just picked this amazing composition. It's not a bad composition, but it's just how much flex it has in terms of how they want to react to what TongFu show them. And we'll be seeing right here. I halfway think we might see a solo safe lane carry here with the Alchemist going into the mid, and then that three stun offensive tri-lane. I love this combination of heroes being able to lead with the Nightmare, that you could follow it with a Splitter through a Shackle. It's so hard. Wow. Okay, never mind. Gonna be a Timbersaw. I haven't seen that guy since G1.
Timbersaw is actually incredibly strong, especially against heroes like Lifestealer and Dragonite, because of his insane burst damage, and of course, the Buzzsaw actually takes away a percentage of your primary stat, or Whirling Death, I guess it's called, but it's 15% stat loss, so his burst, considering most of its pure damage, it really hurts, and if he goes mid, or he wants to go 1 versus 1, even versus the Puck, he's not going to be that hard pressed, because you can just put 1 or 2 points into reactive armor. He's going to be either in a safe lane, which I think is probably going to be the case here, or he's going to be mid, which means that if he's against a DK, that DK is going to be really sad. Like, DK can't do much against a Timbersaw. Not many melee heroes can for that matter. So we'll see what Orange want to try to do, but I do actually like TongFu's lineup still, even though I think that they might get a tad outlaned here. It just depends on what actually happens, because if TongFu think that Orange are going aggressive tri-lane, then they're going to try to dodge. Like, they don't want to put their Lifestealer in a situation where he's not going to be able to do anything. However, that puts Chen in a really interesting spot, because aggressive Chens in the jungle on Radiant is really, really dangerous.
Well, they are going to be moving out right off the bat, looking to get aggressive. Orange sitting back and playing defensive so far. The Windrunner is hanging around mid, handled by Ohio. They've got Net hovering near him as well. Mushi is actually on the Timbersaw, so we'll see how they would decide to want to lane this. Could be a 2-1-2, believe it or not, but as you said, TongFu perhaps sniffing it out and saying, that's fine. You want to send 2 into this lane? We're happy to run an offensive tri-lane of our own. We have plenty of kill potential, a lot of ways we can go about this. So far, just taking the opportunity to ward things out and try to confound any kind of creep pulling and creep stacking and so on and so forth. But doesn't look like we're going to have any engagement, so let's run through the lineup, see who's handling who. We'll have Extinct playing on our left Shrek. We're going to have Net playing on the Bane. Timbersaw, bit of a surprise pick. Good to see him back in. And when I said I hadn't seen him for a while, I admit it. That was when casting G1 was the last time I've actually casted him. Timbersaw, he'll be setting up shop in mid. We're going to have Ohio playing on the Windrunner, giving a little bit of abuse to Moo at the moment. Alchemist going to be handled by KYXY. On the other side of the river, we're going to have Hal taking the Lifestealer mid, at least for the moment. We'll see if that's going to be his permanent position. King J is going to be taking the Shakespearean Wonder into the off lane. The Puck, Rubik, going to be played by San Shing, with Chen doing what he does in the jungle under the control of Banana, with DK played by Moo. And yeah, he will be farming the DK in the lane. So already a bit of a rotation as Ohio shows his face to Hal and doing what damage they can. And yeah, they're just going to go ahead and deal some damage, not worrying about it too much.
Well, it's the only choice TongFu really could have made, because if the Puck goes mid, they're completely sacrificing their offlane, right? Like, no one can go down there besides him, and he's not even down there himself. He's actually just deciding to attack some Ancients right now, because it's very dangerous to try to get a range for experience at this point. Because if you get Nightmared when you Orb, you're just dead, because you can't jaunt to your Orb anymore. The Nightmare lasts a little bit too long. So I don't think King J is going to be having the greatest time in this offlane. And likewise, middle is a bit of an interesting matchup for me. I actually don't think Lifestealer is going to win this matchup, just because every time they joust, which is basically another word for trade, Mushi is always going to use Whirling Death, and Hao is not going to get enough auto attacks off in time for his lifesteal to actually make that much of a difference. So eventually he's still going to get bullied out of lane. He'll just do slightly better than a DK would have.
He's come to lane with quite a bit of regen. Has already eaten through 2 tangos, has another 4 left over. Early CS, we can see, definitely going the way of Mushi. He's got 9 to the 5 of to the 5 of the Lifestealer. Over here at the Ancient Camp, though, and this is something I want to say it was me and you that talked about. It's something that you wonder if it's going to be changed or patched out the way that they did the Radiant creep pulling. Like the Windrunner in particular being able to do this to the Ancient Camp, something a lot of players are torn on, whether they think it's something that should remain in the game or something that should eventually be at least nerfed or changed or altered to make it a little bit more risky or a little bit more difficult to do as efficiently as you can when you play on this Windrunner.
Well, honestly, I think it adds more depth to the game, just being able to do stuff like this, where it is punishable. I mean, if people are going to argue that this is overpowered because you can actually do Ancients, when, let's be honest, there are more efficient ways to farm.
Oh, yeah.
And all you really have to do is rotate over 1 or 2 heroes, and it can completely ruin that hero's day. It's all about what your priorities are. So, for this game, TongFu, they're going to be more than happy having their Chen farming away in the jungle. Banana's already level 3. So, if they want to go for an early tier 1 tower, TongFu are perfectly capable of that. I'm assuming they're going to wait for the DK to hit 6, though, if that's what they're actually going to do. But before we see any tower killing, it looks like we might have a first blood attempt here on the bottom lane here coming out from Orange, as we are going to see Extinct and Net here smoke behind the tier 1.
King J in trouble and doesn't even know it. Still in front of his tier 1. Net, level 1 with point into Nightmare. Split Earth, of course, leveled by Extinct. And just waiting for the opportunity, playing this very, very patiently. We have smoke out on the other side as well. TongFu going to rotate over, and we'll see if they're going to be able to catch this Windrunner. They know exactly what's going on here. At least they should have an idea. Now they're going to have the smoke popped off. And, yep, they know where she is. And this is a bad situation to be in. And now spotted. There's the telekinesis. Ursa Clap is there as well. Excuse me, the Hellbear Smash. Windrun, enough to get him back to the tier 2, though. So a little bit of pressure applied. But in the meantime, really the reason for that, we can see a double wave colliding with the tier 1 top, so they're going to loop on around and just begin to push.
Top tower is under attack.
That's nice multitasking here by TongFu. I mean, they knew what Ohio was doing. It wasn't really much guesswork involved. Oh, we can't see him. There's 2 supports bottom, and Mushi's mid. He's definitely doing the Ancient. So now, Ohio's going to come to the lane. He'll be able to get some experience. He's in no real danger of dying here unless Sanche can get a telekinesis while he's Windrun, which I don't really think is going to happen. But I did want to point out really quick here in this bottom lane, Extinct and Net are very low level. That's still in level 1 because they missed their sentry on the ward for the pull camp, which means they're basically getting no experience. Like, both these heroes should be close to level 3, if not 3, and King J is going to get nightmared, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get him there.
Split Earth is there, and the follow-up puts first blood on the board as X snags the first blood. Relatively active early game, really. It's the first time, that's the first kill we've seen in 4.5 minutes, but we have seen a lot of movement. And really, I would say this is a calling card of both teams, and it kind of comes back to what you're talking about with Orange, a team that was even more so, but still just has that as a part of their personality, and very, very apt to try and take control of the laning phase with well-timed ganks, and certainly worked out that time.
I honestly wasn't sure if they had enough damage to kill him there because the concoction wasn't channeled for that long, but it was level 2, so very, very nice for Orange to be able to get that first blood. And Mushi's still doing very well for himself, but Hao is actually holding his own much better than I thought he would. Mushi's just not able to effectively trade here, actually getting quite low. Misses the... Oh, no,
no trees. No trees. Apparently brought down the local flora at one time or another before, and ends up costing him there. How makes it 1-1. That's a huge turnaround, actually. That's such a big deal for this Lifestealer.
I can't believe that he just let that happen. I mean, he didn't even use Chakram. Like, he just let himself get incredibly low. I mean, it's only level 2 Rage, so it's 4 seconds, but you can still get 1 Chakram and probably get enough distance to be able to get away from that. But Mushi giving away a free kill, a little bit uncharacteristic of him, especially considering his legendary mid status. But it's not a huge deal. How getting a lot out of mid is definitely going to be a problem for Orange at some point, but you can also say that as it stands right now, KYXY free farming with 2 points and a Greevil screen now is going to be a problem for TongFu as well.
Has his Ring of Health up, would tend to indicate that he is making a move towards the Battle Fury. We'll see if that's going to be the direction he decides to go when all's said and done. And Battle Fury versus Shadow Blade is always one of the big questions when you play an Alchemist. Battle Fury, much more late game oriented. Shadow Blade, much more I want to get in your face and make you die many times oriented. So Still has plenty of options in terms of where he wants to go, but for now, taking a look at the CS, we can see he is sitting on top. He's got 40 CS to go with DK on the other side, 32 for the Lifestealer out of this mid lane against the 31 of Mushi. So as you mentioned, Hal really doing an excellent job, and that's going to have a huge influence on this game. Chen sitting at 27 and almost level 6 now. He is rotating in towards mid, so we'll see just how active he wants to be. There's also going to be a rotation out of TongFu coming from the top. And Chakram down, here they come. There's the open wounds, Moot pops the ulti, Dragon Tail, this is going to be another death for sure. No, nice Nightmare, delays it a little bit there. Oh no, he is going to be able to make it away! Mushi finally though, cleaned up, Shackle is going to latch, not going to be any initiation afterwards. The Nightmare plus the Timber Chain, almost enough to get him away, but one nice Fade Bolt makes it 2-1. The pressure still being applied to mid, and we can see the Centaur chasing back net, keeping an eye on things. The other one taking up front. They'll be cleaned up by a power shot. Another TP's going to come in. They might want to reinitiate. Yep, there it is. We're going to have a Dragon Tail onto it. Now there's another TP coming in. The Telekinesis on Alchemist brings him back. Unstable Concoction is tossed, and they're going to be able to clean up San Shing at the very least. 1 for 1 in that exchange. So they do manage to keep the tower up, and they're going to get the deny on it. So that went about as well for them as it possibly could have, given the events that preceded it.
Well, getting the deny is nice, but losing the mid tower at 8 minutes, that's not quite as nice. And it's pretty much the same style as DK was playing. It's like, we're going to kill the tier 1 really quick in the top lane. We're going to collapse, we're going to start fighting you, and our team fight is very, very tough to deal with, especially considering King J's 6. He hasn't even been contributing really in these fights, but now he has that Dream Coil. They can force on their terms. Hao has a double damage here, and they're actually stealing Orange's creep stack in the woods, which is more money that they couldn't afford to give away. So far this game, Orange has made a couple of not horrible mistakes, but enough to the point where you kind of have to think this is going to be a problem, especially missing that Sentry in bottom, because the Bane just hit level 3, and it's 8.5 minutes into the game. And Rubik is halfway to level 6, so he is severely underleveled, but King J with a triple coil.
There's a coil, and the follow-up. They're going to be able to Nightmare net. Nope, never mind. Breathe Fire gets the damage done. Mushi forced to fall back. Shackle doesn't latch. Edict is doing damage, so he will think twice about being kited. And there's the Unstable Concoction. That's going to catch one. Now the Chakram goes out. Open Wounds is out there as well. Hal trying to clean things up. That's 2 heroes very low. Trying to make a retreat for the tier 2 bottom. Bane's going to TP back in. And TongFu willing to go blow for blow. Initiated onto there and just not worried about it. Hal does manage to finish his drums in the meantime. X has to get the hell out of dodge. And now TongFu going to collapse. The power, the Dragon Knight's push power is just so easy to underestimate. But when you're talking about a team that is this apt to take fights, the fact that the Chen, the Banana, is already level 6 and does have Hand of God to get them back into these fights if they do extend, just gives them so much lethality, even though we're just coming up on 10 minutes and they're going to take this tier 1. And given it's the bottom tier 1's the big deal. As you mentioned, you've got supports on the other side that are already behind. And having your jungle taken away, or at least made a lot more risky, not the position you want to be in trying to get things back to even.
This is such an uphill struggle for Orange. I mean, it's so early on, but the fact of the matter is, your Bane is level 3, and you don't have a single tier 1 tower on the map anymore, and Hao just doesn't care, he's going in.
Engaging in, Chakram's going to go out to try and cut him off. Another good Nightmare keeps him alive, same as before. Breathe Fire cleans him up out of the Nightmare. Mushi caught by the Dragon Tail and cleaned up afterwards. Hand of God gets the gloves back up. What little damage was done erased. And no way Orange is going to be able to contest this any further. Not missing that Timber Saw. The aggression of TongFu is just immense at this point. They are going to go ahead and fall back now to try to defend mid. And Hal's just going to chase him down. Another open wounds used. KYXY just says, nope, that's fine. I'll head to the house. And down at bottom, they do decide to go ahead and abandon it. Did not think they would. Seemed to have the push power, but missing a creep wave, I suppose they wanted to play it safe. Nonetheless, we're up to 8 kills in an 11-minute game. Split 6-2. TongFu running away with the early game momentum, coming up on 7,500 gold to their advantage, and the experience down around 5,000.
Top lane, Moo's going to be taking some damage here, but I don't think KYXY is going to be able to finish him. The problem is, the Alchemist is going Battle Fury, which plays into TongFu's court so well, because of the fact that much like many other heroes who go Battle Fury a la AM, You can't fight with that item alone.
Right.
You need something else, especially with 2 base armor against a Lifestealer and a DK, because they're just going to eat you alive. So now it's the point in the game where TongFu realize they have a tremendous advantage. There isn't really any vision right now for Orange. They have 1 ward that's about to go down. And guess what? Your supports are incredibly underleveled. They feel way too scared to go out on their own and try to do any warding by themselves. TongFu has sentries littered in the jungle of Orange right now, and they're just going to find Mushi.
Open wounds. There's the Timber Chain trying to get him out of trouble. Silence is there. And caught out with the telekinesis. There's going to be an unstable concoction tossed out. Now the coil catches a couple. They're going to re-engage. Shackle shots there. Dust Latch buys them some time. The net, though, lockdown X. He's going to be a killing spree death going for How. And this Lifestealer riding on the momentum and success he had in that mid lane, especially after that really surprising solo kill on Mushi. We're seeing why that was such a big deal. He is just becoming so hard to deal with. He's got drums and phase boots, so you're damn well not going to outrun him. Taking up his innate skill set, just making him an absolute horror. And again, TongFu just putting their opposition on the ropes.
Bottom tower is under attack.
In Orange's lineup, if you look at it on paper, it is a bit greedy, considering TongFu's lineup. Like, if you were to compare the two and look at TongFu and say, yeah, TongFu has a team that can fight pretty much at any stage in the game. They have great push potential. They have good supports that can roam. Orange have an Alchemist who is going Battle Fury and an Ancienting Windrunner. I would say that's a slightly greedier lineup than what TongFu is bringing there. And the tier 2 mid is going to die with no contention whatsoever. There's nothing really that Orange can do about this. And the funny part about this push is that Banana has actually delayed his mech by quite a bit. He actually could have had it already, but he opted to go for Arcanes because he knew that they were so far ahead that having the mana was more important than just having another heal, because TongFu have pretty much flattened every single engagement so far. So, all things told, TongFu, this is a really dominant performance. I mean, we saw DK end the game in 13.5 minutes. I think TongFu are on about schedule to maybe end it at around 20.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. DK now with his Shadow Blade done, and this is where things start to get scary. Whenever I look through Orange's lineup, I don't see anything that really is that encouraging to me. I mean, you've got Timbersaw. He's still not really near the mechanism unless he's got it on the way to him now, and I just didn't see it. Nothing but phase boots on the Windrunner. The Alchemist hasn't even completed his Battle Fury yet. And given he was more or less a free-farming Alchemist for quite a good piece of the game, I mean, it's not that he didn't do his job. He's sitting near the top of the CS. It's just the gold gain from TongFu's tower killing alone has put their supports immensely far ahead. We can already see the armlet now is done, or virtually done, for that Lifestealer. We've got King J already with his bottle up, 500 gold away from the Blink Dagger. Arc Boots up on 2 heroes now, on Banana and on the Rubik. And yeah, again, that Shadow Blade up on Moo. There's just so much damage output they have in both physical and magical. And it's hard to see Orange with their underleveled squad really standing up to it every time that TongFu gets together as 5.
And KYXY is going to be forced to TP back home again by How. All How has to do is run at him and use open wounds, and he has no choice but to retreat. And thankfully, he's finally got his Battle Fury. The unfortunate part is that was a safe lane farming Alchemist with a 14-minute Battle Fury. Right. That is actually very slow for an Alchemist. So now, TongFu, they're going to take this opportunity to go ahead and do Roche. I believe, yep, the mech is just finished up here on Banana, and the Puck is going to have Blink as soon as this dies. So this is the point in the game where TongFu's lineup becomes incredibly scary, and there's always that one initiation that you pretty much get for free because the other team doesn't know you have a Blink yet. Yep. They can assume a specific time, but let's be honest, most of the time you're going to get caught at least once. And if they get caught once, the tier 2 tower could die, the base could die, even though it's 50 minutes in and people have relatively low resurrection timers. But yeah, there's Roshan. How he's going to pick that up. He probably has his armlet on the way as well, which in fact he does. So TongFu looking pretty scary.
This Lifestealer is just hauling, man. This is a fast-ass Lifestealer. He is moving. Phase boots with drums and what's under cover of smoke. But yeah, now this is exactly what we were talking about. You've lost that, and I mean, it should serve as an indication just how dire a situation they're in. When you say, oh, if they die, they could lose the tier 2. Not a tier 2, the one still remaining. Mushi, caught off in mid, blown up. That makes a killing spree for Moo as well. Armlet, complete in the inventory of the Lifestealer now. The tier 2, a foregone conclusion. The thing only has 580 HP to begin with, so they'll take that for free. But really, with the push power they have, they can think about just pushing a tier 3 and just saying, okay, Alchemist with your Battle Fury Quelling Blade, why don't you come fight? Let's see how that's going to work.
mean, he can try it. I'm not really sure if it's a choice that he wants to make at this point, but he's not going to have a choice soon. Luckily, he does have max acid spray, which is a pretty decent deterrent for pushing up into the ramp. Orange, I'm not really sure how long they can stem the tide. Level 1 Enfeeble is really only going to do so much against boost damage, and I feel like they could just force this incredibly hard. It would be nothing short of a disaster for TongFu if they could possibly lose this fight, but I don't think they can.
They're certainly setting up shop. They're just hanging out and slow pushing it in. They have total map control and just being able to contain the enemy. Now it looks like they aren't going to pull back, at least for the moment. And perhaps try to bait something out, maybe just waiting on cooldowns, waiting on DK's Elder Dragon form to come back up. It'll be back up in 40 seconds, give or take, and they'll look to take another run at it. But just 17 minutes in, the gold graph is pretty damn out of control. You're talking 15,000 gold, give or take. Separating the squads, 10,000 experience. To check the net worth graph, you can see 5 of the top 6 in terms of net worth, all belonging to TongFu. So only so many words you can use to say it. Orange is on the ropes, and if they want to have any chance, they have to play mistake-free Dota and hope that TongFu makes a lot of mistakes. This could help. They hit a shackle, doesn't latch. Banana dodges the chakram. Now the reinitiation. Coil catches 2. Just looking to melt already. 1's down, make it 2 down, soon to be 3. Nightmare can't delay a Fade Bolt. And just like that, only 2 men standing, and the tier 3 in dire threat.
I think dire is perfect in this particular situation. I wouldn't even be surprised to see them call GG. This is a glyph that basically says, if we don't push you out of our base now, we're definitely losing a Rax. Depending on how bad the fight goes, we could potentially lose 2, and then it's definitely GG at that point. And Unstable Concoction is going to land on move, but they don't really have any follow-up. I just want to point out, oh, never mind, here comes the battle.
And Hand of God gets him back up and fighting. They pursue out the Alchemist. Nightmare interrupts that. Nope, now caught with telekinesis. The rest of them forced to run for the well. Infest gets him back up and in fighting shape. And to the south, they catch out Mushi one more time. Shackle will not latch. So they're doing damage. They're doing decent enough damage to make TongFu at least a little less prone to just rush in. They did get the tier 3, did add another kill to the board and more to the point on the Alchemist, but Naked Rax, now they're going to fall on back. I'm a little surprised they didn't just send Hao in and just say, you know, just 100% YOLO it. Pop your Aegis and we'll fight behind you. Instead, though, playing much more cautious, and I guess really no reason to get that in cautious when it's 19 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I mean, TongFu is still... They haven't lost a tower.
Yep.
Not only have they not lost a tower, but I don't even think any of them have taken much damage. I think the lowest one is tier 1 mid, and it's still at like 60%. So, TongFu definitely sitting pretty here. If you look at the net worth right now, the Bane and the Leshrac are like the poorest supports ever. And this Bane still isn't even level 6. He's level 5. And he is so petrified to come to this creep wave by himself because the only vision they have is around the tier 1 on the dire side in middle lane. Well, I mean, it does see both sides of the river, but honestly, that he wants Fiend's Grip so bad, he's like salivating at the experiences he's going to be getting from this creep wave. And he needs it badly because if they can get good positioning and manage to get somebody down like Hao or potentially even the DK, since Hao is the one who has the Aegis in this case, they could maybe push them out again. But the problem is the racks are exposed, and this time there's no glyph.
Yep. Poor Bane, just hit level 6, as you had mentioned. And yeah, it's one thing to see him at the bottom of net worth. They haven't even cracked 4 digits yet. And depending on how this goes, they may not even have time to do so. As TongFu looking like they're ready to go ahead and make this happen. The Aegis still standing on that Lifestealer. They're going to go for it. Move rushes ahead under cover of the Shadow Blade. 60 seconds until the Aegis is reclaimed. For now, the racks are just being shipped away. And they're going to have to come back out on this soon. Managed, didn't see what he got. Now, hang on, there's the re-engagement as King J jumps in with a passenger. Mushi next on the list. And the rest of the fight, all but a foregone conclusion. Timbersaw did buy back, but in the end, the racks do drop, and along with it, what little hope of comeback. KYXY now re-engaged upon. There's a shackle that will latch, and they are going to be able to get off a kill. Triple kill for Hao. Hao, caught in the chakram, has his Aegis popped. Could not have been more than 10 seconds before it was going to be reclaimed. Ohio next on the list. He comes back up fighting open wounds. On to Mushi. Familiar feeling for Mushi. Gonna try to get away. Nightmare's there. Doesn't matter. Chakrams all over the place as San Sheng has stolen it. And they are now in well farming mode. GG. Gonna be the result. What a show, my friend. 21 minutes, 20 kills, 18 of them going the way of TongFu.
TongFu victory.
This game got so out of hand so quickly. It seemed like Orange had a really good amount of damage output, right? Like, they had Bushi mid, so he's going to get a lot of levels. He's going to get Chakram quickly. The supports, honestly, were like the downfall of Orange in game number 1, especially considering, like, it seems like a very small thing, but when you miss the D ward, you can't get another one fast enough. You need that pull because you need to be able to get experience. When Extinct and Net walked around the tier 1 tower, it's not because they wanted to go for a kill, it's because they couldn't do anything else.
Right.
They couldn't go mid because obviously you're not going to be able to gank a lifestealer with those 2 heroes because he's going to be able to rage. But regardless, if you miss something like that and your supports are that underleveled, then it makes defending pushes almost impossible, especially considering how hard of a push team that TongFu actually had. When they got the tier 1, it was pretty obvious what their game plan was going to be. Very similar to how DK ran a very, very similar not tri-core, but dual-core lineup. So for Orange, next game, don't miss your D wards. Pretty important stuff, especially when you're up against early pushes, but very well played by TongFu.
Just want to point out, Bane's GPM by the end of the game was 91. 91.
Yeah, it's tough.
Life was hard growing up on the mean streets on the Radiant side. Nonetheless, game 1's behind us. TongFu looking sharp and putting it in the books in short fashion. 21 minutes, 18 seconds, 2-18. The final kill score. Game 2 of this best of 2 going to be coming up next. Stick with us, guys. We'll be right back.